My name is Frank Hynes. I run a business called Jobchanger. I also now have Frank Hynes Coaching. So there's a new website that's actually being developed at the minute, but it's actually up and running. It's called frankhynescoaching.com, and it might also be of interest to some of you. It's really mainly dealing with the same area of career at the moment. So that's something that you might find of benefit. I established a Jobchanger only in 2018 after spending 28 years working in the public sector. So I basically had been several years contemplating leaving, procrastinating like an awful lot of people do, but eventually took the bold step, handed in my notice and set up this business. Cormac asked me to look at the whole area of the skills that are needed. So I'm basically looking at, for people who are considering returning to work or changing careers, what are the key skills and qualities that employers are looking for? What are the skills that you may have that you can bring with you into whatever career you're trying to change into? And if you're looking at a job as an accountant, there'll be certain skills in terms of accounting skills, auditing, reporting, etc. If you're in engineering, maybe you'll need AutoCAD or some sort of design. If you're a doctor, you might need to have skills as a physician if you're going to be operating. If you're a painter, you'll need to be able to mix paints, sand down walls, etc. I'm not talking about those physical skills. What I'm talking about is skills that you can bring literally from one job into another. And all of these skills that I'm going to talk about over the next 10 to 15 minutes will really be key in helping you get into whatever role you want to. Most employers would place far more value on these, what I'm going to call soft skills, than they would on the physical hard skills. Because by and large, it's much easier to learn physical hard skills than it is to learn the soft skills. Now, the first one of those skills I'm going to talk about is teamwork. And are you a team player? We often hear about, take for example the Irish rugby team. We're talking about a team of individuals, but we're talking about a team that each individual is a leader in their own right. So it's very important that you have team skills. And in any organisation, even if you're in an office on your own, you're very much likely to be part of a network of other people. You may be manning an office on your own, but there are probably other people in a similar position, or you're answerable to somebody either above or below you. So it's very important that you do have teamwork skills and ability to get on with a team. Have you the ability to identify leadership skills in other people? Are you able to identify the various skills, the skills mix that are on the team? So that if you're actually putting a team together to tackle a certain project, that you actually apply different people's strengths to the areas that they are good at. So that is, to me, one of the most important of all the skills that you're ever going to need. If we look at the second one I'm talking about is communication. One of the greatest problems that most people have in a job that they have, and there's 85% of people tell us that they're not happy at work. And the vast majority of them is to do with relationships. It's relationships with either colleagues, but more significantly, the boss, subordinate or employee relationship. That relationships break down. And if you have good communication skills, it helps significantly to overcome those problems. And whether you're at the bottom of the hierarchy or you're at the top of the hierarchy or anywhere in between, it's really important that you're able to communicate so that you can nurture relationships. The second part of communications, of course, is to do with written communication. And more organisations and more employers want people to be able to write effectively. That might be done as something as simple as putting a post on a social media, or it may be writing some sort of a marketing material, or it may be breaking down some detailed report into a more understandable document for your colleagues to understand. So having good communication skills, those skills can apply no matter what level or what scale of a job that you're looking for. The third one I'm talking about is analysis and problem solving. Have you the ability to look at a problem objectively or critically and come up with a solution? And that's again something that you can apply. It doesn't have to be career specific. It applies right across the board. So the greater that you can show that your ability to analyse those skills, the greater the more employable you become and the more attractive you are to other employers. The next one I'm talking about is leadership, and I've already referred to the likes of the rugby team. We know there's a captain, and might be at the moment we have Johnny Sexton, but you regularly hear reference to the amount of leaders that are on the field, and every one of the players are leaders in their own right. They can make decisions, and even if you're at the very bottom of the hierarchy in an organisation, you can just as much show leadership skills there as somebody at the top end. The problem in actual fact oftentimes is that a lot of people that become good managers, but maybe they're not great leaders. And some of those end up in senior management positions, and there ends up being a lot of conflict between themselves and the overall team, because literally they're not able to inspire. They drive as opposed to lead. But have you shown opportunities where you have actually shown leadership, even if you're in what you might think is a very low level job? If you're in a high level job, you have greater opportunity to expose it. But leadership skills are something that you can bring no matter what job you're coming from. One of the most significant things and one of the most guaranteed things that are going to happen into the future is that there will always be change. And there's a huge problem with resistance to change. And certainly you will notice that I worked in an organisation of the order of 2,000 people. And certainly if there was some big change coming down the tracks, there was always a huge amount of resistance to it. But we're all resistant to change in somewhat. We like the comfort zone. But if you have shown that your adaptability, that your willingness to accept change, that your willingness to try new things, to try new ideas, that again gives you a foot in the door over an awful lot of people. The opposite of that, of course, is being one of those people who is resistant to change. And if you're resistant to change, it makes you far less employable. So see where you can show that you have shown your adaptability and your willingness to change. Quality number 6, and there's only one more after this. I'll talk about 7. The number 6 is how creative are you, or where have you shown initiative? Have you shown creative ways of finding solutions to problems? Have you shown creative ways of anticipating something that's coming down the tracks? Where you've shown your initiative and been proactive, again, you become much more attractive for an employer. Now, of course, all of those 6 skills that I've spoken about already are very much about working smart, not hard. The problem is, from time to time, in almost all organisations, the time that going does get tough. So on top of all of those and having those applicable, transferable skills, employers want to know that you are a committed worker, that they can count on you, that they can rely on you, that you'll bring your commitment wherever you go, so that when the going do get tough, that you're prepared to put your shoulder to the wheel and that you're not always going to be looking for the easy option. Now there's something else though I would like to move on to, because all of those skills are very, very important. If you are preparing for an interview or if you're applying for a job, you're putting your CV together. Can you show that you have all of those skills? And they're very, very important. The problem is, this very much can leave you out in the cold, and I believe there's something far more important that we should be asking ourselves. I mentioned at the beginning that 85% of people are not happy in their work. And lots of surveys show this, and lots of surveys show that about half of those people literally hate their jobs. And I read something in the last couple of days about a recent survey that was done in the US. There was about 10,000 people involved in the survey, and those 57% of them are seriously thinking about leaving, with something like 45% of the people in the survey are actively looking for alternative work. That tells you that they are not happy. And if they're not happy, the question is why? Most of us have seen a job that we feel we will be good at, maybe we've trained for, and we put all our efforts into getting that job, and we design our CVs and we write our cover letter, and we go in to do an interview to impress the prospective employer so that they will give us the job. But have you ever really thought about what you want? Because I think there are a number of questions that we should be asking ourselves. First of all, I'll say, what is wrong with your career at the moment? What are your career aspirations? And what is holding you back from achieving those? Have you ever really given it thought? Or have you, like many people do, is drift into a course after you finish school? You do a course maybe because it's the one you qualified for. Or maybe it's the one that was popular and other people were talking about. but have you really thought about what you want at the end? And again, I often wonder, is it why so many people have difficulty getting through their third level courses and there is such a large dropout rate? Because perhaps they haven't given the thought in the early stage. And I would ask, the final question I was there is, what should you do? What should you do to address those issues? Wherever you're at in life now, I believe it's time to sit up and say, I want to make changes, I want to enjoy my life. The good news about 85% of people being unhappy at work is that there's 15% are happy. Now, if there's 15% are happy, why can't you be one of them? Why can't you be one of them? And I don't know how many people here are dissatisfied with their careers. But I know certainly from meeting people in places like this and people who actually come to me, that the level of dissatisfaction is probably even higher. I find it very hard to admit that we have made a bad choice. We don't want to admit it to our friends. We don't want to admit it to our neighbours. But at least be honest to yourself. And if you're honest to yourself, what can you do about it? And that's where I'm challenging you today, is to see what you can do about this. It's your life. Life is short. People say you're here for a good time, not for a long time. So I would say, start thinking about that. Steve Jobs said the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. Now, I think and firmly believe, and I'm very confident, that we should do this. I mentioned I spent 28 years working in the public sector. I spent at least the last 6 years, I will say, what I thought was actively looking to get out. But I was procrastinating. I was also doing a lot of research and a lot of study during that period of time. But if you don't take decisive action, you'll end up spending another 6 years, possibly in a miserable job, in a miserable position, in a miserable situation. And I think this is just as important for employers as it is for employees to realise this. Because there's no need to be that way. If we're unhappy at work, no matter what, we're going to bring home some of that into our home life, into our personal life, into our work-life balance. How many people are working a difficult job, working way longer than what you would like to be doing, and you're just too tired to enjoy the time that you're off? How many people cannot wait for Friday to come around? They enjoy Saturday, but by Sunday they're worried about going back to work on Monday. And I think it's sad when it doesn't need to be that way. Now, if what I've said to you resonates with you, I mentioned Jobchanger, but I also mentioned Frank Hynes coaching. I have something put on Frank Hynes coaching in the last couple of days. And if you feel what I have said resonates with you, I would encourage you to check out the website frankhinescoaching.com. Don't expect it perfect, it's not perfect. But there's a page in there, how to quit the job you hate. Check that out. In that, I am offering anybody who is here the opportunity to do a one-to-one consultation session that will be aimed to help you get clear on what you want from your career. Now, there's a lot of detail on that page. I would encourage you to read it. At the end of reading it, if you feel that session is of benefit to you, and if you feel that you would make use of that session wisely, I would say go ahead and book a session. There's an opportunity, and it explains at the end of the page how to book it. I don't want to waste your time if it's not going to be for you, but the details are there. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the close. I want to thank you very much for your attention. I would encourage you to do what I said. I'll be here for answering questions if I can take questions from the floor, or I'll be down at the back of the room afterwards as well. Thank you.
Could I just ask you a quick question, Frank? So you said, first of all, thank you very much. That was brilliant. You said during it, your talk, how you should adapt to change. You shouldn't be in your comfort zone. Do you think it's a bad place to be in if you're just kind of coasting through your job? Or do you think you should be constantly pushing yourself?
Okay, I don't necessarily mean you should be constantly pushing yourself into something that you don't want. But if you get a vision, if you can create a vision, so it's what you want out of your life and out of your career, I certainly believe then you should be pushing until you get there. And you may not be in the ideal job now, but if you could create some sort of a vision for the ideal job you would like to be in 5 years' time, maybe you need to make a move now. The first move may not be the ideal move, but I believe you should be pushing yourself towards that. But I believe, and every time that you are being asked to push yourself further, ask yourself, will that extra effort bring me closer to the ideal thing I want? So I don't know if that answers your question, but I would say it is good to be pushing yourself if you're pushing yourself in the right direction. The problem is most of us actually don't know. Many of us are in a job and we want to get promoted. And we think the all elusive thing would be, if I could only get that extra money, and if I could only get that lovely title. But people you find yourself there and suddenly, this is not what I thought it would be. You know, I used to often hear in the past that people are promoted to their least area of competence. And it does happen where people go for promotion maybe for the wrong reason, because they want that title and because they want that money. And then they suddenly find themselves in a job that they actually don't like the work. And, you know, you wonder then where is it all going wrong? You know, most of us drift through life. And drifting through life is why we end up, in my view, why most of us end up unhappy in our careers. Whereas if you can try and create that vision, you can always change, you can twist and turn and change it as you're getting closer to it if you feel it's still not right for you. But at least you have something to aim for. Is that
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thanks so much. And Frank, if someone is here today and they're actually really disliking their job, would you recommend them quitting the job and then trying to find a new job, or kind of going for job interviews while you're still in a job that you don't like?
The latter would generally be speaking. Now, that said, I did the former. But you have to create the situation where you enable yourself to be able to quit. It's not everybody who could just quit a job and walk away from it. I had got to a stage where my children were coming towards the end of their college life, and I had put things in place that enabled me get through a little while. And I was able to, I also had a wife who was working, which actually helped. There was an income coming into the house. I was also able to create the situation that I wasn't able to go and get caught, you know, in that financial dilemma, and I was prepared to do something different. But once I made the decision to leave, it was absolutely a weight off my shoulders. So, but there are two ways, I suppose, of approaching that. One is there a way you can possibly manage, if you need to hold on to your income, is there a way that you can manage that job? And, you know, I believe there are certainly ways you can manage your existing job, even if it's not your ideal job, even if you're unhappy. There are ways you can actually make little bits of tweaks that actually make it much more bearable, and particularly if you know that it's only going to be for that while you're working things out. So, I mean, it's in an ideal world, I would say, yes, throw in the towel. But I think in most situations, that's probably not a practical thing to do. But there are ways that you can handle your situations that you can actually get there without putting yourself at that risk. Okay?
Well, that's brilliant. Thanks so much. Please put your hands together for Frank Hynes. That was great. Thank you.